Yo guys, it's Monroe and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you a team that involves Diggersby. So I'm pairing that up with Drifblim, which is ranked 95 in the Great League. This is one of the best ones I've got, and again, this is pre-XL Candy rankings. And now he's my Diggersby. I just kind of went past it. So this Diggersby here is, even though it's ranked 2069 in the Great League, it is pretty much like great IVs to max out completely under 1500 without using XL Candy. In the video you'll see it basically at 1300 something CP, just because I didn't have enough candy for it to max it out completely, but I was too excited to use it. So my final pairing is with the Azumarill. So I'm starting the first game off against a Skarmory. So the Drifblim is kind of there as an all-rounder great lead, because leads tend to be either Azumarill, G-Fisk, Galvantula, Marowak or Skarmory. So again, start off with a really good lead. All I'm going to do here is Icy Wind as much as possible, and I don't really need to shield anything because the Skarmory can only sky attack me, and it won't make too much difference. So here I'm going to opt to go for the Shadow Ball because my opponent's going to believe it's just an Icy Wind, but this will KO the Skarmory, so no shield by my opponent. So my opponent brings out a Bastardon, which is a great hard counter for my Drifblim, but I bring in my my bunny, which is Diggersby, and Diggersby pretty much has a good game against is excellent against Bastardon and a decent against the Whiscash. Whiscash, I'm trying to kind of force the shield out right now, but my bait was unsuccessful. So right now my opponent's just going to mudbob me down as much as possible, and I'm like, you know what, forget about it. Forget baiting, I'm just going to go straight for the power moves. So I built up to an Earthquake the Whiscash, and it takes it into the red, which is brilliant. So now all I need to do is basically just shield this, because I'm thinking it's going to be a Blizzard, but my opponent is just building up to mud bombs and just throwing mud bombs constantly. So here I'm trying to obviously knock down the Whiscash with a Fire Punch, and I managed to do it. So my opponent is pretty much banking on his Bastardon, which is great, but I do have a Zoomer on the back for it as well. So here I'm just trying to bait out more shields, so I'm building up to an Earthquake and just throwing a Fire Punch. So my opponent obviously shields it. I was trying to catch a Stone Edge or a Flamethrower there, but you know, my Drifblim was the sack swap. It was fine. So here I bring in a Azumarill, and even though I don't have a Hydro Pump on this Azumarill, the bubbles should be enough to whittle it down. And also I do have a shield, as well as I've got the Diggersby in the back, which completely resists whatever Bastion can throw me. So right now it's all about just whittling down the Bastardon into the range. So here I'm just I think I built up to a Hydro Pump, but through the Ice Beam instead. My opponent didn't fall for it, so I'm just throwing the slightly hard hitting charge move, which is the fairy typing. But yeah, so again, like I said, even though Azumarill has no Hydro Pump, it can still do quite a lot of damage against this Bastardon. So yeah, in the end I just let that go through, because the Bastardon's pretty much weak now, and I can just Fire Punch it down for the win. So yeah, so that was a great first game. So overall I went 9-3 with this team. I've kind of played it mismatched. When I built the team, I was too excited to play it, so I just kind of started playing it in between a set, and then I played it for 2 more sets, but the second set didn't go so well. So here, up against another Skarmory lead, so another great lead. Skarmory is pretty much everywhere in the meta, so again, same tactic here is to build up to the Icy Wind and throw it, and almost like CMP tie with the Sky Attack. And yeah, my opponent again Sky Attacks. This time my opponent switches out to an Azumarill, so I'm just building up to a Shadow Ball, because I want this Azumarill down as much as possible before I bring my own Azumarill. So yeah, so my opponent doesn't shield, because again, most of them don't want to waste the shield on the Icy Wind, and here, because my opponent's trying to farm me down, I'm able to get I build up to an Icy Wind and debuff the Azumarill. So now when my own Azumarill comes in, it doesn't have to worry about anything, but perfectly it was a CMP tie. So my opponent is throwing an Ice Beam anyway. So my opponent isn't dry on energy, but it has obviously used quite a bit of energy on me. So now all I need to do is build up to the Ice Beam to take out this Azumarill. So most Azumarills nowadays are running Ice Beam and Play Rough, and my opponent switches out into a Swampert, which isn't great for my Diggersby, and again Azumarill has play against it, but it needs to watch out for the sludge wave. But thankfully I was able to farm so much on the other Azumarill, I was able to build up to almost 2 Ice Beams. So right now I've got both my opponent's shields, and all I need to do is basically shield the sludge wave. Even if it's a hydro cannon, it's all about a useful shield. So yeah, my opponent doesn't bait me there, he just throws a sludge wave. So here, I'm kind of risking it because I think it's just going to be a hydro cannon, and I called the bait correctly, which was great, and I finally built up to an ice beam, and pretty much it's bye-bye Swampert from here. Well, close enough. So yeah, Swampert switches out into the Azumarill. I think he believed I was ready to throw another charge move. So here there was a bit of lag, but my Azumarill's done his bit, so I'm kind of okay to let my Azumarill go. No, I wasn't. So yeah, so obviously my Azumarill's got a lot of energy, so I just build up to the ice beam and just throw the ice beam there because my opponent has no shields. So my opponent brings back his Skarmory, and Skarmory doesn't really have much play against Diggersby, because Diggersby can just constantly throw a Fire Punch at it, as well as, I mean, Brave Bird will do quite a lot of damage, but again, Skarmory being flying type, it's not that great. And as you can tell, you know, Diggersby is quite tanky. It took that Brave Bird to the face quite comfortably, and here he swaps into a Swampert, and I Fire Punch that down. And here again, just need to build up to a Fire Punch, which is extremely quick on Diggersby, and yeah, I take the win there. So good game to me again, and well played to my opponent. And this was also part of one set. So again, I've been having a rough time past rank 10. So switching out teams left, right, and center. So yeah, on to game 3. Off to a really bad lead this time. So my play here is to just build up to the Icy Wind, and we kind of get to Icy Wind, and Galvantula gets to discharge or lunge at the same time. So my idea is to throw it as soon as possible, and my opponent's shields, drops his attack, and most people assume that I will either shield, so I don't shield there, and my opponent just lunges me. So that's perfect. I'm able to build up to another Icy Wind, but my opponent times it correctly and throws, it switches out into an Azumarill, which isn't great for me, but again, I've debuffed it now, which is great. So the Azumarill's going to try and farm me down. So here I'm just building up to another Icy Wind, storing it, and trying to catch this either Ice Beam onto my own Azumarill, because I wanted to waste his energy. So yeah, so Azumarill has no play against the Galvantula, or has little play against the Galvantula. So right now, I'm really not going to shield anything. I'm just going to play rough the opposing Azumarill. So play rough's coming my way. So already I'm at a shield advantage. So the whole idea of Drift Blim is to get the advantage on shields, because it's so good at debuffing your opponent, and most people don't really shield the Shadow Ball that comes through, because they always expect it to be an Icy Wind. You can easily sneak those through, and it can do a lot of damage. So my opponent now switches out into a Surf Edge, which isn't great for my team because it can pretty much like counter everything I've got, but my opponent is using his final shield to protect it, and here I've still got 2 shields, so it's just a Night Slash, which wouldn't do too much, but all I have to do is build up to the Play Rough, and this should one-shot it. So yeah, Play Rough is quite good on the Azumarill, but obviously I have changed it up as the time has come along, as the meta has started changing. But yeah, so my opponent switches out into an Azumarill, and I've got an Icy Wind ready, so all I do is just Icy Wind it there. Ideally, I should have just Shadow Balled it there, but you know, being a little preemptive and just kind of spamming whatever I could. So my opponent brings out Galvantula, and Galvantula really can't do much against Diggersby, because obviously the ground resists the electric moves, and because I've got a Fire Punch, it's pretty much game over. Although lunge does hurt quite a bit, so it's all about building up to at least 2 Fire Punches here, because being debuffed isn't great, and a Fire Punch isn't exactly the strongest of moves, so as you can see there, being debuffed twice and also not the best. So again, finally built up to another Fire Punch, and this should easily KO the Galvantula. So yeah, I switched out to my Drift Blim because I wanted to catch something from Azumarill, but it pretty much was a sacrificial swap. So I found one final shield, and Diggersby had enough health to kind of build up to an Earthquake. Fire Punch would have not taken it out. So yeah, another good game to my opponent. So on to the next game. So this game, Altaria. So start off with Altaria. So Altaria isn't the best against Drift Blim because obviously the Icy Winds. So a good lead for me, but my opponent really times that correctly and catches the Icy Wind on the Abominable Snow. So Abominable Snow really checks my team completely. So my team has a lot of trouble against Abominable Snow. Snow and Scrafty. So that's the two Pokemon that really wall my team. Even though I've got someone on the back, Scrafty can really do a lot against my two Pokemon, and even defense Deoxys. So yeah, so I did stay in there. Probably my mistake, but the whole idea was to kind of get the Snow as low as possible by throwing either Icy Winds at it and also Shadow Ball at it. So here I don't shield, thinking it's just a Weather Ball, but it's just an Energy Ball. Thankfully, it's because it's been debuffed twice. I was able to not take too much damage. So my opponent brings out a Scrafty. So like I said, Scrafty does check my Diggersby, but my opponent is at a shield advantage here, so I'm just throwing the Play Rough here because Play Rough is the best hitting move against it. My opponent shields. It was also to get the shields too. Scrafty can't do much against Azumarill because its most of its moves like Power Punch and Dark Pulse won't do much against it. And yeah, so here my opponent shields again, and it's up to me to just kind of tank whatever it can do. So my opponent does throw a Foul Play at me, which isn't great. It does take on my Azumarill. So now I'm left in a really bad position. So ideally I should have shielded that, but I was anticipating a Power Up Punch. So Diggersby, like I said, can't really do much against this Scrafty. Scrafty builds up this counters really quickly, and Power Up Punch just powers its way through even further. So yeah, I was able to Earthquake the Scrafty, but again, Scrafty is fairly tanky, so that was a good game to my opponent. So on to the next game, and on to another bad lead against Glorian Stunfisk. So I'm going to try and catch the Rock Slide. So I shield the first Rock Slide. I'm just farming up as much as possible because I do always tend to shield the first Rock Slide. So here I'm throwing the Shadow Ball because my opponent's going to obviously expect an Icy Wind and doesn't shield. So here I'm again trying to catch the Rock Slide, and this time I was actually effectively able to catch it, so that was good. But obviously in doing that I am going to be weak to the Azumarill swapping. So yeah, so right now all I can do is just build up to Earthquakes and try to Earthquake this Azumarill as much as possible. I am obviously at a shield deficit, so that isn't great. So right now it's all about trying to get that shield from my opponent. So my opponent Ice Beams me, which is, you know, just quite a lot of damage, but like I said, I was able to build up another Earthquake, and this should hopefully get the shield. If not, bring the Azumarill into the red, which is great. And now I can bring in my own Azumarill to farm down the rest of this Azumarill, which is pretty decent for me. So I'm still wanting to hold on to that last shield because just in case there's something in the back that's really going to hurt my team. And my opponent still has 2 shields, so the only Pokemon I'm decent against is the Glorian Stunfisk. And here I decided to throw the Ice Beam because I don't want the Glorian Stunfisk to either get to an Earthquake or a Rock Slide. So my opponent's shield, which is good on his part because he's got 2 shields. But thankfully I was able to get so much farm from the other Azumarill. I was so close to having 2 Ice Beams. So now my opponent shields again. So he really wants to keep this Stunfisk alive and wants to either Earthquake me, which he does, which I use my last shield on. And now it's a race to the fairy type move. So my opponent brings out a Scrafty. Scrafty isn't great, like I said, against Azumarill, and all Azumarill has to do is play Rough him once, and that should be able to KO the Scrafty. So yep, so again, decent alignment for this team. So that was a good game to me. And on to the next one. So this time we're starting off against a Scrafty lead, which is terrible because, like I said, Scrafty and Snow are the 2 Pokemon that check my team really well for the leads. So right now I'm just going to keep building up to Icy Wind and debuff this as much as possible. Icy Wind does have decent play against Scrafty, but Scrafty does have Foul Play, which does a lot of damage, as you can see. I do want to shield, but I was expecting my opponent to bait me there. But obviously my opponent didn't bait me, he just Foul Played me. I didn't think it'd do that much damage, but it did a lot more damage than I thought. So here I'm like, Drifbloom's pretty much dead weight, so I won't shield. So my opponent baited me there, which I was great against. And now I could either shield here, and I do, but my opponent baits me again, so I catch another Power Up Punch, so which isn't great. So now I'm just going to try to do as much damage as possible against this Lantern, and I Shadow Ball it. So that's great. I'm taking into the yellow, and I'm also able to build up to an Icy Wind, so I can debuff this Lantern as well. So that's pretty good. So I'm able to kind of get the advantage back. So here the misplay happened. So I was thinking it's going to be a Thunderbolt or a Hydro Pump. So I should have really shielded this Hydro Pump because it does a lot of damage. And yeah, so that kind of gets my bunny Diggersby into the yellow. And Fire Punch here should be able to take Lantern out. So we're 2 for 2 now. One shield left. My opponent does have more health than me. And like I said, Scrafty does check my team. So Scrafty does really well against my Diggersby. So here I switch into my Azumarill, and my opponent switches out to a Hypno and a Shadow Hypno as well. So here is pretty much a race to the Thunder Punches. If it was a regular Hypno, this would have been a lot easier, but being a Shadow, the extra damage from the Thunder Punches actually does make a big difference. So that really was the turning point of the game. Here I built up to a play rough, but it's not enough to take out the Hypno. And you know, the confusion damages are basically all that's needed to take me out. So I really could have shielded the last Thunder Punch, but my opponent was building up quite a lot, and again Shadow Hypno does quite a lot of damage with confusion as well as the Thunder Punches. So good game to my opponent. Did misplay a little bit there myself. Could have played that better. So on to the next set. So yeah, so far this team has performed really well. I do like the Drifblim lead. I think it is one of the better leads for this team. This team also struggles against Deoxys defense Deoxys, which is everywhere in the meta, especially as you climb higher and higher. So starting off with a decent lead against Whiscash. Whiscash isn't great against Drifblim, and the only thing it can really do is throw blizzards. So I'm obviously banking my opponent's going to try baiting me, so I don't really fall for that. And here I'm just trying to like Shadow Ball it down because I don't want my opponent, well, my opponent's going to think it's going to be an Icy Wind. So yeah, because I Shadow Ball it down, my opponent basically surrenders. So yeah, Drifblim is really good at catching people off guard because again, that's the Icy Wind is such a great move. It can make people think that, you know what, there's no point shielding it. So yeah, my opponent starts off with alolan Marowak, which isn't a great start for me because alolan Marowak can do some damage towards me, but my opponent switches out into a Ferrothorn and I switch out into Diggersby because obviously I've got the Fire Punch to deal a lot of damage to it. So obviously I don't want my Azumarill to see the Ferrothorn. I'm trying to do as much damage as possible with the Fire Punches. So Diggersby doesn't have the best matchup against Ferrothorn because of the Power Whips, as you can probably see there, it did a lot of damage. So, but because of the Mud Shots, it can build up to Fire Punches really quickly. And ideally, I did think this Fire Punch would do a lot more damage. It didn't, but my opponent was able to take me out there, which is fine. I do bring in the Drifblim now to kind of absorb everything that can throw me. Ideally, I could have shielded this Thunder, but I kind of want to save my shield for the Azumarill. So here I'm just building up to an Icy Wind, and this should be enough to take out my opponent. So my opponent brings out an Azumarill, and I'm building up to another a Shadow Ball because again, like I said, my Azumarill is my last Pokemon, and it will have good play against the alolan Marowak. And if I can basically bring my opponent's Azumarill into the yellow, it should make my own Azumarill's game a lot more easier. And because I've got a shield as well, this game is pretty much for me to take unless I misplay really badly. So I'm trying to obviously bubble my opponent down correctly. So my opponent switches out into his alolan Marowak now. So I just need to guess correctly if it's going to be a Shadow Ball or a Bone Club. So I don't shield here. My opponent does Shadow Ball me, which isn't great, but I'm able to build up to a play rough. Having no Hydro Pump on Azumarill does hurt it quite a bit, especially if it's facing against a Marowak. But thankfully I was able to time that correctly and get the Sack Swap off on the Drifblim, even though it was a Bone Club. So I'm going to try and bubble down my opponent, and he's going to throw a Charge Move at me. So, but because I'm able to farm down this little Marowak, I'm able to have a Charge Move ready for this Azumarill in the form of a Play Rough. So this should be enough to take it out. So great game. Did misplay here and there, but thankfully I was able to get the win there in the end. So on to the next game. My opponent's leading with a can't remember what it's called. Oh, Whimsicott, sorry. So Whimsicott doesn't have the best match against a Drifblim because of the icy winds. So my opponent switches out. So my opponent switches out into an alolan marowak. I could have ideally stayed, but my Diggersby has a really strong matchup against the alolan marowak. And plus, I don't want my Diggersby to kind of see the Whimsicott, because Whimsicott can build up to the grass moves fairly quickly. So yep, I'm just building up to the Earthquakey, and I think my opponent realizes that his Marowak can't do much, so he surrenders the damage. And here it's because it's a Razor Leaf Whimsicott, it's doing quite a bit of damage against my Diggersby. So here I'm just trying to build up to as much Fire Punch as I can. So now I switch back into my Drifblim, and because obviously Razor Leaf doesn't really affect Drifblim too much, I'm able to just build up to an Icy Wind and take it out from there. So now on my opponent brings out a Dugong, which isn't great for my Drifblim, but because obviously I've got my own Azumarill with the Clear Rough, it's able to basically be tanky enough and dish out enough damage even with the Icy Wind debuffs to take out this Drifblim. Sorry, take out this Dugong. So all I need to do now is just carry on building with the Play Roughs, and I don't need to shield anything. My opponent will shield obviously because he's got 2 shields. He wants to keep the Dugong alive because Dugong will do decently well against Drifblim, and it can slowly whittle down my Azumarill as much as possible. So yeah, so I have tried this team out with Hypno, with Ice Punch and Shadow Ball, and also Thunder Punch and Focus Blast. And to be honest, I've not really enjoyed using Hypno, just because you need the right, like the starting alignment isn't always great. Going against a G-Fisk, depending on which moveset you have, G-Fisk can be quite an annoying thing to go against, and obviously alolan marowak is also really annoying in the meta as well. So that I had a bit of bad luck with that. I've also tried using Diggersby with Azumarill and Abomasnow, and that's given me a little bit more success, but really I've been finding it difficult to find another good pairing with Diggersby. So yeah, like I said, I was able to basically beat down my opponent with the Play Roughs. So on to the next game. So we're starting off with another good lead against alolan marowak. So here the whole idea is to basically count the fast moves from my opponent and try to Shadow Ball my opponent. My opponent might think it's an Icy Wind, so he won't shield, and he doesn't. Like I said, Drifblim's great at doing that, and that gives me the advantage of taking out the alolan marowak. So my opponent brings out an Azumarill. So here again, I'm just building up to the Shadow Balls because Icy Wind doesn't do a lot against Azumarill, and just I want to do as much damage as possible. So my opponent now has a charge move ready for me, most likely an Ice Beam, which will be able to take me out. So now I can bring in my own Azumarill and just build up to Play Roughs, and hopefully that should be enough. So my opponent perfectly times that correctly and catches the Play Rough on his Venusaur, which isn't great due to the fact that Venusaur resists the fairy moves due to his poison typing. So now I switch into my Diggersby. Not a great matchup for Diggersby as well, because Venusaur can throw Frenzy Plants quite quickly, but Diggersby does have the Fire Punch to do enough damage. So right now it's just a race to building up to the Fire Punches. So my opponent lets the first one go through, which might have been a mistake on his part, because obviously Fire Punch does quite a lot of damage, and I can build him up really quickly. My opponent is saving his shield, so he used one there to keep himself alive. And I'm using my final shield here because I don't want my Azumarill to go up against this Venusaur. So I'm building up as much as possible to either get close to 2 and throw one Fire Punch, and I'm able to take my opponent out here. So my opponent is saving his last shield for his Azumarill, but my Diggersby's done his job, so he's taken out. So right now it's pretty much a race to the Play Roughs. So my opponent has Hydro Pump as well. So right now I'm in a really comfortable spot to win this. All I need to do is build up to Play Roughs, but right now I'm baiting my opponent with an Ice Beam. I don't really need to do it, but I know my opponent's going to shield anyway, so he does, which gives me the advantage needed to win the game there. So yeah, good game to my opponent. On to the next game. So we're off with the really bad lead of Obama Snow. So like I said, Obama Snow really checks my team because it can do really well against my Diggersby and also really well against my Driftblame and Azumarill. So not the best lead. So all I can do here is just stay in, absorb the damage, don't use any shields, and just build up to a Shadow Ball and try to get as much health off this Obama Snow as possible. So yeah, he lets that go through. So I bring in my Azumarill to try to farm down this Obama Snow. And my biggest mistake was I let this energy ball go through. I didn't think it was going to be an energy ball, but because it did so much damage. Last time I think I debuffed it, and I wasn't sure it was going to do that much damage this time. But yeah, it took me down quite a lot. So now my opponent brings his own Azumarill out. Because my Azumarill is so low, it's going to do really well against mine. And also Azumarill checks my Diggersby in the back. So due to that misplay of not shielding correctly, which I should have, even though because I had 2 shields, and then just shielded once and then farmed down the Obama Snow, that would have put me in a really good position to win the game, but that was my mistake. So my opponent is just going to play rough me, and I'm trying to bait my opponent's shield, which I am able to do. So I switch out into my Diggersby now because I want to get some more energy, and my opponent brings out a Whiscash. So like I said, Whiscash can only really do anything to me with a Blizzard. So I'm just building up to an Earthquake. Earthquake does do at least half to maybe 3/5 of the Whiscash's health. So now I'm thinking it's going to be a Blizzard. It's not, it's just another mud bomb. So my opponent has taken my final shield. So I'm just going to try to build up to 5 punches, and hopefully this should be enough to get the shield, and the next one might be enough to get the remaining health of Whiscash, but my opponent has built up to the mud bomb at the time. So I'm just building up to the 5 punch and throwing it now, and this should get it really close into the range of taking it out with another 5 punch. But my opponent switched that to Azumarill, and I wanted to switch out to my own, but I miscounted how much energy that Azumarill had. So if I had got the swap correctly, I would have either sacked up my own Azumarill, then come back in with the Diggersby to 5 punch both of them down. So I'm able to get 4 wins in that set. So this team overall performed really well, and I did enjoy it. So yeah guys, thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel and take care. Thank you.